Have you ever noticed how 20 good things can happen in a day and one bad thing, and your brain will focus on that bad thing every single time? And it's like the good stuff just slides right off you, and the bad stuff, well, it sticks. And it's literally how the brain is wired. It's not your character flaw, it's how our brains are wired. It's called a negativity bias. And it's been keeping humans alive for thousands of years. But it's also probably making you miserable right now. So today I want to talk about why your brain does this, why positive thinking doesn't fix it, and what actually works to rewire your brain so the good stuff starts to stick too. So basically the way to think about it is that your brain is Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. And the reason for that is we have a negativity bias to pull out the bad. And it's kind of really obvious why this happened if we think about it evolutionary wise. So if we went back into the caveman days, okay, a bad thing happening might mean something like a predator is coming up on you, which could mean death, right? So we could die if we miss that bad thing. But if we miss the good thing, maybe like a bit of extra food or a nice experience, it's a minor inconvenience, but we can survive. So our brains were programmed to look for the bad, the negative, the dangerous, because that's what kept us safe. So our brain is literally designed to scan for the danger and lock onto it. But the problem we have nowadays is that most bad things we focus on aren't actually life-threatening. They're an inconvenience, they're difficult, but we can survive them. But they've become the dominant force in our lives. So you can have a brilliant day, you can achieve loads, but drop one ball in the afternoon and suddenly it's proof to yourself that you are a failure. And this is something that I experience a lot. I forget one thing and I might have a huge list of stuff to do and I forget to do one thing and then I'm like, and the negative thoughts spiral in because it's like, well, you didn't do this. It's like, well, what about all the other things I did do? So in real life, this can show up in so many different ways. So one negative interaction can wipe out a week of positive ones. So, for example, when I deal with my son's dad, we don't have the best of relationships. I say that quite often. Most of the time, our interactions are quite neutral, not a lot going on. But we can have one bad exchange and it can derail everything. Or there's the late afternoon stress spiral. So you lose something, forget something, you're late for something, and it turns into negative self-talk and proof that you're not good enough. And it's important to say that when you're dysregulated, this gets even worse. So your brain picks up on negative things as proof that there's something to be afraid of keeping you stuck in fight or flight mode. And other things that can impact it are if you're going through hormonal cycles. So when you're in, say, a PMS stage, you are affected, your emotions are affected by your hormones. And so what will happen is you will feel more negative emotions. And so you will then attract even more negative kind of like bias to yourself. And the effect of noticing the negative can be amplified as well. So there's huge cost to having this kind of pattern that can impact us a lot. And it can destroy our self-esteem, our self-image, our self-worth. So for example, when I'm trying to eat healthily, I might have a great day eating really healthily and then have a cheap chocolate or a cheap biscuit in the evening. And my brain will focus on I didn't stick to what I said I was going to do and spiral into, I'm not good enough, I'm not worth anything, I'm not capable, I can't do these things, because it's focusing on that. It's not focusing on, well, actually you ate really well for the rest of the day and that was just like a little treat and that's okay. And so we have to kind of try and explain this to the brain quite often when we catch it. And we can often end up in chronic worry and stress because our brains ignore what went right and fixate on what went wrong. So you end up not recognizing your progress, not celebrating your wins because they don't really stick. And you're constantly proving to yourself that you're failing even when you're not. And it's so important to kind of like acknowledge this. And then along come these wonderful self-help gurus. And they say, well, say my positive affirmations and just say them over and over again. And I will say this, I'm a massive fan of Louise Hay. So I say this with a pinch of salt, but it is true. I'm not a big fan of positive affirmations for a number of reasons. One, because what you're saying isn't actually true. And so we can't feel it in our bodies because we don't feel it as true. And maybe we can do visualizations to start to feel it as true. But sometimes we're saying meaningless words. And then because we have this negativity bias, when anything that comes up that disproves that positive affirmation, we will then latch onto it as proof that that affirmation is not working. And so we're kind of like stuck in that real difficult push and pull with it. And when we do positive thinking, when we do a positive affirmation, we say something positive, we're trying to find the positive in a negative situation. We're trying to diminish the negativity and try and make it positive. And that can be very jarring and very toxic. And it's not something that I actually really agree with, because you can't force yourself to think in a positive way when something genuinely bad happened, because that is actually denying reality. So actually what really works, and it's a key difference, is you look for positive things. Like, you're not looking to create positive things. You look for positive things that have happened or that you can experience. Okay, so we try and make them a reality. Because especially if we're looking at things that have happened, positive things that have already happened, we've already experienced them. We can already feel the positive emotion in our bodies because it's already happened. You're not creating a fake positivity. You're noticing real positive experience you've lived through. So you can do things like, at the end of the day, do a done list or a positive things list. Consciously notice what you've achieved. List the positive moments that happened in the day. Try and think of as many as you possibly can, and feel those positive states in your body as you're listing them out. And what this does is it actually starts to train your brain to look for positive states, positive things throughout the day. So a smile with your child, a connection in a shop, small moments, and you start to become more aware of them when they're actually happening. And there's a great work by Barbara Fredrickson, I think I've got the right name there, who does a lot of work on positive states, not positive thinking. So we look for the states that we can experience in a day that are positive, because we all have positive states that we experience in the day. So we focus on experiencing them rather than thinking positively. And we need to do this, right? We need to do all this without denying reality, because I think that's one of the things that positive thinking does, is we try and push away the reality, but that's not going to help you a lot. So we accept the reality. Bad things happen. Life is hard and trauma is real. We will all experience these things. But you put the negative into perspective. So yes, the negative thing happened. What else happened that was positive? Because we're not saying that didn't happen, and we're not trying to make that negative into a positive. Okay, if something really bad happens, let's suppose someone dies or something else happens, that's happened, right? It's negative. Can you find the positive around that? So you're not wiping out the negative. You're refusing to let the negative wipe out the positive. And that's the difference. We're switching the way we look at it. So if you have trauma, your brain, and this can make it worse, because when you're traumatized, your brain is even more primed for looking for the negative. And so we bring in even more self-compassion, and we understand that, we appreciate it. Every time we notice the negative, we thank ourselves. Thank you for noticing the negative. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. But did you know that also this happened today, and this happened, and this happened? So we start to rewire the brain. So in terms of your nervous system, I'll bring it back to that. When you're regulated, it's much easier to access the positive memories and experiences, the things that you've gone through in the day. And when you're dysregulated, you will automatically whoosh straight into the negative, hold on to that. And that's like your thing. And it becomes something that you really connect into. And so it's working on how we can keep working with that and regulate. So every time we feel us hooking onto the negative, before we start looking for those positive states, we can do a little bit of regulation and start looking for those positive states and pulling them in more and more and more. And yes, one of the things you'll think is, well, what if I'm going through something really traumatic at the moment? What if I'm really burnt out? What if I'm grieving? I can't really start this now because I just want to focus on what's happening. And what I would say is, actually, this is a really great time to start this practice, because you can be burnt out and still do something positive. You can be grieving and still have a positive experience, right? Because we don't spend our entire lives in a flat negative state. It's really, really hard for us to do that. You'll notice it in children when they're grieving. And people often think that they're not grieving because they don't see it, because children will go up and down in their grief. So they'll have a peak of grief, and then they drop it for a bit, and then they go back into it. And actually, even as adults, we do that to some extent. So even when we're having these negative things, we can still have a positive experience. And so we start to become aware of those positive experiences, and that can help us to move through the negative experience that we're having. So it's not about pretending like life's fine and everything's fine. It's just about training your brain even in the darkness. Okay, so there's lots of ways in which we can look at that. So what I would like you to try to help you to kind of like anchor this into your general life is, before you go to bed tonight, write down 3 to 5 positive things that happened today. And it's not like a gratitude list. You don't necessarily have to be grateful for it. Just positive things that happened. Because I find whenever I start doing a gratitude list, I start panicking. What am I grateful for? What am I grateful for? But just things that happen. It could be anything, really tiny. So this is things that actually happened. So maybe it's a good cup of tea. Maybe it's having a laugh with your child. Maybe it's just getting like things ticked off your to-do list. Something that made you smile, maybe. And just notice how your body feels when you experience that, when you re-experience it. And that's how you start to rewire the brain to look for the positive and to draw those experiences to you more and more. So if this resonated with you, remember to like and subscribe so you get more of these things from me. And I've got a free guide for you on building positive states, building the positive states into your day. And if you would like that, it's available in my free school group, and there is a link in the description so you can jump in and grab it. And I will see you again soon.